Hey, what's up? It's Friday and this is Fiverr Talks, which means we're doing viewer questions from the comments section. Today we're talking about everything from delivery times to reactionary reviews to the Seller Plus program, so you don't want to miss a second of today's video. That's right, today is Friday. I am ready to go out on the town on a date with my wife. It's been a little bit of a crazy week and I've got a lot of questions to get through here. So I thought I would start with one question from me to you. This is something I've been thinking about. I've been wondering. A lot of you have been giving me great comments in the feedback section, or rather feedback in the comments section below about the content you like, the content you don't like. I'm going to try to get back to gig reviews in the future. I know that's something that you guys want, but I've been kind of interested in knowing, what do you think about vlog content? How many of you out there are interested in going with me on a normal routine day, seeing kind of what I do, what's happening in my life? Maybe not getting into like family deals, but just kind of what I do in my work and in general. I'm curious, how many of you are interested? How many of you don't care? How many of you just want this forever and nothing else? Tell me in the comments down below, because I really am interested. And if you have a question for next week, I do this every single Friday. You can leave it in the comments below for me. So let's get started. Today is probably the first time in a long time that I've had about twice as many questions that I can handle, so I will only get to as many as I possibly can, and we will move on to next week after that, okay? Here we go. The first question comes from Taryn Ramsey. Taryn asks, I just reached level 2 this month, and I've used a lot of your content to get me there. That's very kind of you to say, Taryn. Does reaching level 2 mean I should raise my prices? Now, this is a question a lot of people ask. Hey, now I'm worth more, right? The answer is no, you're not actually worth more just because you got to level 2. If getting to level 2 means that your quality went up, that the demand for your services is higher than it's ever been before, that maybe you can't handle everything that's coming in, then it is time to raise your prices. But simply reaching level 2 does not mean you're worth more. This is kind of the same thing that happens with traditional education. Sometimes people go out and they get that master's degree and they go, now I'm worth more, right? No, it just means you spent more on your education. You're worth more when you're worth more. It doesn't matter what your education is. You're worth more when you're worth more. It doesn't matter what your level is. So if what you're doing is higher in quality than most people, if you've got more demand for your services than you can handle, if demand is outweighing your time, then it's time for you to raise prices. I've got videos completely solely on this, but no, I don't believe just because you level up, you're worth more. The market won't either. They just don't care. They care about the end product, and that's it. So if you're doing better work, if you can't keep up with the demand for your work, then it is time to raise prices. Leveling up is not when you do that. It's when demand produces demand necessitates that you raise your prices. I hope that was helpful. Our next question comes from Chris Dynamic. I wish I was Joel Dynamic. Chris Dynamic, I love it. He says, what do you really think about customer feedback or reviews after the visible review that we all have as a seller? Now, Chris, this is a really good question. If you're not familiar, for those of you that aren't familiar with this kind of process of reviewing out there, and most sellers would be, the thing on Fiverr is that you as a seller cannot see a buyer's review until you leave a review. That way you can't leave a reactionary review, like someone leaves you a 2-star review, so you leave them a 2-star review. In a sense, Fiverr holds each of your reviews until both of you have submitted one. If you don't submit one, then theirs will eventually submit, but it's after the time that you won't be able to submit one. So it's a blind review process. It didn't used to be, but it is now. It's a blind review. So if a buyer leaves you a review, you'll get a message. Hey, you've got a buyer review. You've got a review from your buyer. Leave them a review to see that review. Are you confused yet? Yeah, I know, it can get confusing. But after you do that, after you view their review, you can leave a reaction to it. It's not a second review. That's what Chris is talking about here. It's a reaction to their review. So for instance, if someone leaves you a poor review, you can leave a response. Hey, this person didn't get back to me, and so that's why we were off base on this. They never communicated. You can, in a sense, defend yourself. He's asking, What do I think about this review? We all have this as a seller. We all have this question. What is this? What do we do with it? In fact, somebody else followed this up. I didn't include it, but somebody else followed up in the comments by asking, how does this review affect us? And the answer is it doesn't affect you at all. Typically, I don't respond to those reviews. I've already left a review, so I don't need to leave a response to every review. And there's no evidence that it affects you at all. The only time I would is if somebody mentioned something that maybe was an issue and I need to clarify maybe why they felt that way or the real truth of the situation. It's your turn to defend yourself. That's a very rare thing that I have to use it, and hopefully you as well. But it really doesn't affect you at all. It's just a matter of whether you want to leave 2 reviews or a reaction to every review you receive. Thanks for your question, Chris. Our next question comes from Skiro Beats or Cyro Beats. I'm not really sure. Either one. He or she asks, if we ask for a delivery extension, but the buyer doesn't accept it within the time frame, does it affect our rates? Do you have any experience with that? Well, glad you asked, because I have a ton of experience with this, meaning a ton of experience with people who just don't respond, who for some reason or another place an order, leave hundreds of dollars sitting there and just walk away for weeks, for days, sometimes for months. I once had a project that was on the books for over a year, just kept offering extension. They would come back every 30 days and accept them and then disappear and do nothing else. But it is frustrating when you send extensions and they don't accept them, a buyer doesn't respond. And the truth is, from my experience, I don't believe, and I see no evidence to prove, that sending an extension that is not accepted, even when something is late, affects your stats. Because I have seen things go late, but I have an extension out there, a request, because they're not responding. And then later they accept it, I deliver, and that's not marked as a late delivery. It doesn't affect my late delivery stats. In fact, my late delivery stat is almost always at 100%. If it ever slips to 99. And I have to do this all the time, meaning people don't get back to me. I have to put a request out there for an extension. And if they don't accept it by the end of the timeline, I let it sit there because I want them to properly accept this extension and stay within the bounds of what Fiverr has asked me to do, rather than trying to do something silly or stupid just to avoid a late delivery. In my experience, it's never affected my late delivery statistic. It's never docked me because I'm waiting on someone to accept a request. So that wasn't really the question that you were asking, Skiro Beats. You were asking, does this affect you asked about our rates. My guess is you're asking about ranking. I've also not seen that negatively affect your ranking or anything like that. It's a part of the process. Fiverr wants you to use their system. So it's there when you need it. If you need to request an extension, I don't think the evidence of extra requests docks you at all, and I wouldn't be afraid to use it if I were you. So I hope that helps, and I hope you use that system properly because it's what Fiverr wants you to do. Our next question comes from Thisam Dilnath. Boy, I messed that up all the way. But Thisam, here is his question. There's like 5 questions here, so I'm just going to answer one. The first question is, can we use the same Fiverr account at the same time in 2 different devices and in 2 different IPs? The answer to the first part of your question is, can you use the same Fiverr account at the same time in 2 different devices, is yes. And the second part, in 2 different IPs, the answer is also yes. I have people on my team that are in different locations logged into Fiverr at the same time as me. I can be on my laptop, on my phone, on another device, all at the same time. You need to be careful with how many places your Fiverr account is logged in and who you're trusting in there. But yes, the answer is you can have the same Fiverr account open in 2 different devices and 2 different IPs at the same time. They do not log you out in one place when you're logged in another. Thank you for your question. This is our next question from Sandra. Sandra's a longtime viewer, leaves a lot of great questions and comments. She asks, what do you think about Fiverr's Seller Plus program? Oh, funny you should ask. I've heard a few sellers say that they've noticed that their business has tanked because they've not joined it, and other sellers in the same area that have. Sandra, let me just say this. I just joined Seller Plus last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago now. I experienced no adverse effects after not not joining it right away. This has been out for 6 months, maybe more. I did not join it. I didn't see the merit in it. Maybe more like a year. I made a video about this, about how you don't really need somebody to manage your success. You're the success manager here. But I joined it, to get some extra analytics on my gigs. I've got so many different gigs that are in the same categories, and I was trying to figure out how they're performing and what keywords are going. So I joined it for the analytics to test it out. But secondly, I joined it so that I could share this information with you all. And I can personally say that I have neither seen a negative effect from not being on Seller Plus or a positive effect after joining Seller Plus. The positive effect that you've heard Fiverr allude to when it comes to Seller Plus is related to you getting this extra information, getting this extra support, and doing smart things with it. So I don't believe that Fiverr, and I believe it would be crooked if they did, I don't believe that they're promoting people who are in Seller Plus more so than people that aren't. And there are going to be people who comment and disagree with me, and that's fine. You can disagree with me, but I just don't think that's how the game works. I know that Fiverr's not manipulating things in that way. Well, I don't know it, but I have a hunch that they're not being unethical in that way. But there are a lot of things around Seller Plus that would make it seem that way, because people who are in Seller Plus in general have access to greater analytics, greater information, better coaching. They care more than people who aren't in the program in general, I would say. That's a safe assumption. And they're doing things that would help their sales. So it's not causation, it's just correlation. So I would challenge you to think about things in that light, that Seller Plus is not causing people to, it's not because somebody joined Seller Plus that their gig statistics went up. It's that it caused them to do the right things that would also help their gigs perform better. So hopefully that helps. I'm going to report back and make a bigger, longer, juicier video about Seller Plus here in the next, I don't know, maybe the next month or so, after I've had a little time to marinate on it. But it's a good question, and one that a lot of people are asking. And it's just not something that I think has a lot of validity to it, that, hey, I joined, so they're promoting me all the time. Or, no, you didn't join, so we're putting you at the bottom. I just don't think it's true. I think those of you watching this channel are getting a lot of education and community that you could get from the Seller Plus program, only this is free, so you're welcome. Our next question comes from Naguberos. Berros. I think I'll say it like that. He says, I'm a producer. Awesome. I'm also a musician, and I'm often on the road touring. Man, this is exactly who Fiverr needs. Touring pros doing gigs related to music. I'm not sure exactly what you do, but that sounds amazing. As a musician, I'm jealous. I'd love to be touring. How do you recommend that I manage work when I have to leave town for a few days? That is a subject of great debate, and I've made whole videos about Fiverr's vacation setting and all these things, and there's a lot of different methods that work for a lot of different people. The thing you need to remember, Nagu, is that you need to find a way of handling your gigs that works for you when you're gone. I have one way of doing it, but my way won't work for everybody. I have a team, yet I still used a similar but a little bit different method when it was just me. I don't use vacation mode on Fiverr ever. I believe back in the old days that had a negative effect on your profile, gigs out of search results for a while, all these things. I thought it had a negative effect, and it might still. You really can't convince me one way or the other, but I know one way to make sure it doesn't have a negative effect is to never go on vacation mode. So the way I do it is I crank up turnaround times a little bit. I make sure that I am all the way out on things, and if I'm going out of the road, on the road away from home for a couple days and not delivering things, I just make sure I have nothing due, and I check my messages once a day to make sure that I'm still within the 24 hours. But you have to find a way to manage that works for you. I know a lot of people that put their gigs on vacation mode every single weekend, and it's obviously working for them because some of them are top-rated sellers, and the cycle seems to work. So I would just push the question back to you. What works for you? What has worked? What hasn't worked? What have you seen when you took time off and came back? If you used vacation mode or didn't, what's working for you as a business and what's not? I would ask more the question, what works for you, rather than what works for Fiverr? Because I think almost anybody who's a good seller producing a good product can do it Fiverr's way with vacation mode, or the same way I do with no vacation mode, and it can still work. It's just a matter of managing it well, managing expectations with clients and potential clients. Back in the old days, I used to shoot a little addendum to my gig video and upload it that said like, hey, I'm out of town for the next week. I'll be back on this date and I'll be taking orders, or whatever it was. But these things just aren't as necessary as they once were. The platform is set up for some of that now that it wasn't before. And I think you should take advantage of it if it works for you. So check it out and see if it does. Our last question today is going to be coming from Ilmas. Ilmas asks, I started on Fiverr 6 months ago and I'm doing great. Awesome. Congratulations. But I have a client whose delivery was supposed to be in 3 days, but she keeps on demanding color changes. I think she's in some kind of graphic arts. She'll say, I don't like this. Please use pink instead. And when I deliver that with pink, she demands revisions and says, I don't like this. Use red instead. She doesn't respond quickly, and it usually takes her till the very last hour to say what color she wants to be changed, and it goes back and forth. She's been doing this for 20 days, and now I feel like she's playing games with me. What do I do? Well, Ilmas, I got to say, you have run into one of the problem clients sounds like I've met this person before. It's hopefully a few and far between experience for you, but sometimes you run up against people that are just a pain in the butt for whatever reason. They're just difficult. They're born that way. Maybe mommy didn't hug them enough, and so they need your attention. Whatever it is, it's annoying. All you can do is continue to deliver and maybe set some boundaries in those deliveries. One of the things that I don't do is I never offer unlimited revisions for anyone. And every time I do a revision, so for instance, in my video explainer video gigs, we offer up to 3 rounds of revisions within 2 weeks of delivery. So we have a finite kind of window for revisions. And we remind people when we deliver a revision, you now have 2 left. You have 8 days left to request these. And when we send the final one, this is your final one. You have no more revisions. Your timeline is up. Anything from this point on will be a paid revision. It sounds like maybe you haven't defined that for your customer, and that's why she's finding a way to abuse you in the process. Hey, it's kind of hard to do in the middle and say, okay, this is it. Last one, this is it. You might be there. You might have to say that to your client. But if you have these parameters set before you start, then it's not a surprise to anyone. And this goes for really any gig at any time for any reason. This is why we need policies, procedures, things stated in the gig description that we can point back to, rules of engagement that you can say, this is the way I play. If you want to work with me, you're going to have to follow these rules because I ask everybody to follow the same rules. I think that's what this issue is about. But ultimately, if this customer is continuing to request revision after revision after revision, and it seems like they're playing games with you, reach out to customer support and see what they can do for you. Now, I will say from experience, they're going to say to you, we can't make this customer accept the delivery. We can't. That's going to be their response. They absolutely will not complete an order because someone's being annoying. It won't happen. But you could reach out to them and say, can you examine this conversation, examine this gig and see what's going on? Maybe offer some suggestions of what I could do. And they might be helpful. I don't know. They might not. But in my experience, when someone's continually clicking revision request, Fiverr customer support will not complete and cannot complete that gig for you. You're going to have to work it out with this person and hopefully wear them down so that they stop asking for revisions. I hope that was helpful today, and I'm really glad you stopped by. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you have questions, leave them for me in the comments section down below. I do this every single Friday, and I've not been able to get to every single question this week or other weeks because there's so many. So get your question in early. The earlier questions will be given priority so we can cover as many topics with those of you that are right here on the cutting edge, the cusp of every single video. So thank you for watching. As always, my name is Joel. This is Fiverr Talks, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed this content, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. You can subscribe for more videos right over there, and there's actually a playlist of videos right there that would really be great for you if you're looking for more tips on how to become a top-rated seller on Fiverr. So until next time, keep doing, because the future favors the doers.